The morning sun barely broke through the heavy blinds of our home in Willow Creek, Virginia, on a chilly October Saturday in 2024. I was on a classified call, the kind that locks you in a soundproof office and drowns out the world. My son, Ethan, 12 years old and autistic, was in the backyard, spinning gently on his sensory swing, humming softly to himself. It was his sanctuary, his way of stitching the chaos of the world into something that made sense. I should have been out there with him, but the call was urgent, lives hung in the balance, families I'd never meet. I told myself Ethan would be fine. He'd managed sensory overload before. I didn't know that across the fence, a predator was watching, waiting, her plan already in motion. Her name was Margaret Hensley, and she arrived in our neighborhood like a cold front. 6 months earlier, her moving van rolled into Willow Creek, and within days, she'd seized control of the homeowners association. Pearls at her throat, clipboard in hand, she carried herself like she'd been elected queen. She baked cookies, quoted covenants, and smiled with teeth that never matched her eyes. The neighbors ate it up. They called her efficient, a breath of fresh air. To me, she was a storm cloud, her gaze always lingering too long on Ethan. He was different, brilliant, sensitive, his hand flapping in soft chants a language she couldn't read but chose to weaponize. I saw her filming him once, her phone angled from her porch while she pretended to water plants. I let it slide. I'd spent years as a federal prosecutor, coordinating witness protection and interstate trafficking cases. I knew better than to react too soon. Silence, I thought, was my shield. I was wrong. That morning, the landscaping crew next door fired up their leaf blowers, a sensory assault that sent Ethan rocking, hands over his ears, muttering, "Too much, too much." I saw him from my office window, struggling but coping, and I told myself he'd head inside for his headphones. I didn't see Margaret slip through our gate, her cameras off, zip ties tucked in her pocket. Security footage later showed her striding toward Ethan like a hunter, her voice sharp and false. "Your noises are upsetting the neighborhood, sweetheart," she said. He rocked harder, pleading, "Too loud, please stop." She didn't. She lunged, pinned his arms, and bound his wrists with professional-grade restraints she'd bought days earlier. Ethan screamed, "Dad, help," but my soundproof walls swallowed it. She dragged him across our concrete toward her garage, his knees scraping, his sobs choking. She'd timed it perfectly, knew I'd be locked in that call, knew Ethan would be alone. She'd been watching us for weeks. The scream that finally broke through wasn't just panic, it was terror, raw and primal. My heart stopped. I tore off my headset, bolted through the patio doors, and vaulted the porch steps. "Ethan." No answer, just her voice, cold and commanding. "If you can't behave, someone has to teach you." I rounded the house and saw the Margaret, HOA president, dragging my son like a trophy, his wrists bound, his face streaked with tears and dirt. She was smiling. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I ran, cleared the fence in one leap, and slammed into her with every ounce of rage in my body. She crumpled, shrieking, as I ripped Ethan from her grip and dropped to my knees, clawing at the zip ties until my fingers bled. "You're safe, buddy," I whispered, my voice shaking but steady. "I've got you." His breath hitched, lips trembling. "Dad," she said I was a problem. She tied me. Margaret tried to crawl away. I grabbed the HOA sign from her own lawn and hurled it at the pavement in front of her. It shattered with a crack. "Don't move," I growled. She froze, panting, blood trickling from her lip where she'd hit the ground. I marched toward her, fists clenched, voice low and lethal. "You stalked my son. You zip-tied a disabled child in my backyard and dragged him like garbage." She spat back, defiant even now. "He was disruptive, screaming, ruining the peace. I warned you, Nathan." I grabbed her collar, yanking her to her knees. "You think his sounds are worse than what you did? You think peace justifies trussing up a kid like an animal?" I pulled out my badge, flicked it open like a blade. "Nathan Caldwell, U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Virginia." Her face went white, her mouth slack. Sirens wailed in the distance. Our neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, filming everything. "She attacked that boy," she shouted. "I got it all." FBI vehicles screeched to a stop. Agents swarmed, cuffing Margaret as she muttered, "This isn't how it was supposed to go." I held Ethan, his small frame trembling against me, and whispered, "You don't touch a bear's cub and expect to walk away." As they dragged her to the squad car, she screamed, "I was protecting the community. That boy's a danger." But the welts on Ethan's wrists told the real story. Agent Laura Kim, field commander from the Richmond office, approached me, her eyes sharp and furious. "Prosecutor Caldwell, we've seen the footage. Your son's injuries match heavy-duty restraints." This was planned. I handed her the zip ties, still slick with Ethan's sweat. She turned off her cameras, timed my call, came prepared. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a hunt. Kim's jaw tightened. "We'll treat it as such." Within hours, a search of Margaret's home cracked the case wide open. Her office was a war room: binders, flash drives, a digital folder labeled Community Standards. Inside were dossiers on 17 federal families, all with disabled children, IRS agents, DEA operatives, judges, and me. Names, schedules, home layouts, photos of therapy equipment, behavioral notes. Ethan's file was meticulous: his swing, his chants, his meltdowns, all labeled disruptive. Agent Kim's voice was grim. "She's not alone. This is a network, anti-government extremists targeting federal families with vulnerable kids. It's psychological warfare masked as HOA enforcement." My fists clenched. I'd prosecuted cartels, traffickers, predators, but this was personal. "You come for our kids," I said. "We burn you down." That night, I sat by Ethan's bed, watching his bandaged wrists rise and fall with each breath. He hadn't spoken since the hospital, his eyes dim, his hands still. The silence was louder than any scream. Dr. Rachel Nguyen, the trauma specialist, warned me he might retreat, that autistic kids often internalize pain this way. I refused to accept it. I whispered to him about our favorite train documentaries, the pancakes we'd make, the Lego set waiting at home. Just after dawn, he blinked. "Dad," he said, voice hoarse. "Did they arrest her?" I nodded. "FBI's got her. Federal charges." He paused, then whispered, "I remember everything. Her voice, her smell, what she said. I want to tell someone, the FBI, a judge." My throat tightened. "You sure, buddy?" He looked at me, eyes fierce. "I'm not weak." She thought different means broken. I saw her patterns. "I want people to know." Ethan didn't speak for 2 days after that. He sat in his room, curtains half drawn, headphones on, curled up by his bookshelf. It wasn't a meltdown, it was damage. I hated Margaret for every second she'd stolen, every spark she'd dimmed. But on the third morning, he called me. "Dad," he said, eyes clear, hands steady. "Did they see the video?" I nodded. "Everyone saw what she did." He took off his headphones. "Then I want to tell my side. I want people to know what it felt like." I blinked back tears. "You don't have to do this alone." He smiled, small but real. "I want to help the other kids like me." That was when I knew Margaret had lost. She hadn't broken him, she'd ignited him. The investigation exploded. Margaret's Community Standards folder linked to encrypted channels, aliases, and code words like neighborhood compliance. Emails revealed her strategy. Special needs kids are soft targets. Their parents hide, ashamed. Apply pressure until they break or leave. It's not Abuseite's order. She wasn't alone. Similar HOA incidents surfaced in Oregon and Texas. Same tactics, same hate. The FBI launched a multi-state task force, and I gave them everything: me case notes, my threats, my rage. I wasn't just a witness. I was a weapon. Ethan testified a month later, his voice steady, his words cutting. He described Margaret's car, her patterns, the way she'd watched him for weeks. The courtroom was silent, every juror leaning forward. He wasn't a victim, was a force. The judge remanded Margaret without bail, her charges piling up: federal kidnapping, hate crimes, civil rights violations, assault on a disabled minor. But the real victory was Ethan's spark returning, brighter than ever. What started as a quiet Saturday in Willow Creek became a reckoning. Margaret thought she could silence a family, break a child, hide behind a clipboard and a title. She didn't know she'd woken a system, a father, a boy who saw what she couldn't. Silence isn't peace. Order isn't justice. And difference isn't weakness, it's power. Ethan doesn't need fixing. He needs protection, space to shine. Every family, no matter how loud or different, deserves to feel safe in their own home. If you've ever been shamed for your child's differences, If someone's title made you feel small, know this: you're not alone. Fight back with truth, with law, with everything you've got. Justice isn't always a gavel sometimes. It's a father running barefoot through a backyard to save his son. If Ethan's courage moves you, comment "Justice for Ethan" to show you stand with us. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We'll keep telling these stories, exposing the truth, protecting the vulnerable. But let's talk. Was I wrong to break her jaw, or was it justice in the moment? Should HOAs have this much power, or are they breeding grounds for control freaks like Margaret? And what would you do if someone zip-tied your child in your own backyard? Drop your thoughts below. Let's make some noise.